Take a little break from the tip series, and we're going to talk specifically to those folks who need a little, perhaps a little more help. If you're one, you probably would agree with me. Introverts. I have several clients here, actually all at the same time, that would characterize themselves as introverts. And so I thought I'd just take a little time this week and focus totally on them. First, before we get started, a little bit about myself. I'm an occupational consultant and work with folks all over the world, helping them to either get back to work if they're not at work, or helping them to identify what it is they really would like to do some career planning, things like that. Help people do interviewing, practice interviewing, and resumes, cover letters, LinkedIn profiles. I do some writing too, mainly business writing, but I do editing and work with folks who are writing their dissertations or master's theses, and that's always interesting, and I learn a lot from those folks as well. But as I say, right now I do have several people that are practicing interviewing with me who would characterize themselves as introverts. So I thought that we would focus on that today, and then we'll get back to the interview tip series. On the video that I'll be uploading, you'll see that there'll be slides that will have my contact information, a little bit more information about myself and some of the things that I do, and more importantly, some links to free resources. I hope that you take advantage of the free resources. I hope that you're making it a point to think about your career and learn about job searching and career planning on a daily basis. Make it part of what it is that you do. It really takes a lot to keep a job these days, not just get a job. So if you're not thinking along those lines, I'd encourage you to do so. Probably every week on my videos or discussions, I find myself saying, you know, people come to me quite often and say, I never saw it coming, and all of a sudden they're unemployed and out of work, stressed out, trying to find a job, get their resume together, the whole 9 yards. And it's very, very difficult. But if you're focused on your career and maintaining and planning where you need to go and want to be, you're going to be in a lot better position if something unexpected like that does happen. So I hope that you will think about that and plan for that and really monitor your career. For lack of a better word, if you know you're in a new career path or you've just started a new job, you may not have time every single day. But I would encourage you to take as much time as you can. It doesn't take too long to read an article a day online. If you're at a loss where to turn, I have a number of sources for you. If you're connected with me on LinkedIn, I post something there every day that's very general in terms of business or careers that you can read and even share to keep connected with your network and have something to share with your network as well, to keep your relationships strong with people that you're connected to. That really does help. I also have a weekly newsletter, or actually it's a daily newsletter that comes out through Paperly, and a weekly Flipboard job search for the rest of us. If you're on an iPhone or an iPad or a Mac, you can access my Flipboard magazine, and that's kind of a fun way to interact with the articles that I do share. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Skype. I chat. I just started FaceTiming. All very good ways to communicate, but I'm open to whatever method works for you. I do tend to rely on email a lot because that allows me to work at times when you're not available, and vice versa. But if you need me, certainly you can find me on Skype and ask me a quick question. I'm usually available to help you there. If not, I can at least schedule some time with you to see what we can do to get some help for you. So enough about that. Again, when I upload this video to YouTube, it will have the slides in addition to the video that will give you some helpful links that I do hope you'll take advantage of. Now, if you're an introvert, you know that you are one, and you should just embrace that. And you can call yourself shy or quiet, whatever you would like. Hopefully you don't find the term introvert offensive. I don't think that you will, but the biggest thing that you could do is to over prepare. And the first 3 tips, in fact, that I have for my introverts is to practice, practice, practice. Because by over preparing, you're going to feel super comfortable and go into that interview feeling very confident. I always advise anybody I'm working with on interviews to write down the answers to their interview questions that they're practicing, and revise and edit and work on those and practice them aloud with yourself and with someone else, if possible with someone like myself who can give you some professional feedback and really take on an objective role as an employer and give you some solid feedback that's going to be helpful to you. Because that really does help. Again, over preparing will give you not only the knowledge and the security of knowing, you have the answers to just about every interview question, but it'll just make you feel more confident overall, and you can go in feeling a little bit more relaxed to that interview than you ordinarily would have. I would also encourage you to prepare notes and to organize them in a way that makes sense to you. Have them in a daily planner if you use a planner, neatly secured in a folder or a notebook that looks professional. You should have notes that you want to refer to in the interview of either names that are difficult to pronounce and you might want to spell if you need to name drop during your interview. Questions that you want to ask the employer ahead of time. Maybe some quick notes about points that you definitely want to bring up during the interview. And any quick notes about answers to questions that you have a difficult time answering. You don't want to write them all out. You're going to flub up probably if you write them in full sentences, because if you start to veer in any way from that sentence that you have written down, you'll get flustered and nervous, and that will just start possibly a downward spiral that you don't want. So in order to keep the interview moving along and flowing and you maintaining that confident air and feeling, just jot down a few quick phrases or words that will remind you of your answers to those difficult interview questions perhaps. And you want to have a place to write questions during the course of the interview that you might want to circle back to with the interviewer too. Certainly you want to dress comfortably. You want to feel again very confident and comfortable, so you'll want to dress in an outfit that you feel comfortable in, that you are secure in, and that you feel that looks good to you, and hopefully you'll tried it on ahead of time and even gotten feedback from a close friend or family member about how it looks, and make sure that it does look professional and that it does look good on you. Make sure you sit down and stand up and walk in whatever outfit. The worst thing that could happen, is you have a wardrobe malfunction, or just, feeling uncomfortable sitting down versus, well, it looked good standing up, sometimes can make a big difference. So you don't want to be tugging or adjusting your clothing throughout the interview. That'll just make you feel more nervous, and it may raise a couple of eyebrows too. So just make sure you're wearing comfortable, suitable clothes that you feel confident in. You'll want to visit the location early. Again, doing that will take kind of the mystery out of the location. You'll be able to visualize where you're going and allow yourself to feel a little bit more comfortable. When you can picture where you're going, a lot of times that'll make you less nervous. You'll be able to identify any construction problems or difficulties that you might have getting to the actual office location, especially if it's in a large office building. A lot of times it's not very apparent how to get to suite 15039B. So if you can do a little reconnaissance, make sure and dress decently just in case somebody does see you and recognize you. But try not to be noticeable, and just very casually survey where you're going to be meeting for the interview, so that you're prepared time-wise by allowing enough time to get to the interview. And again, so that you can visualize where you're going, and that will go a long way towards helping you feel more comfortable and more confident. This next one, if you're anything like any of my other clients, I think you'll recognize that sometimes when you get nervous, you might say, and is good in meditation, but not necessarily peppered throughout the course of an interview. So the couple techniques that you can use to limit your ums. First of all, practice not saying in your regular everyday life. As a reminder, you can kind of press your tongue to the roof of your mouth. Just, nobody can see on the outside. Just press it right up there to the roof of your mouth, and that'll remind you not to say usually you're trying to think of something, keep the flow going, but you're nervous, so you don't know what to say, and you rush to fill that silence. Silence is okay, and unless you take too long to think, nobody will think that you're brain dead or that you've suddenly gone into a seizure or something. So just take your time. Again, practice not saying put your tongue to the roof of your mouth or press down in your mouth, whatever's more comfortable. Some people will play with a bracelet or just turn it around. Don't make it too obvious. You don't want to be distracting about it, but just something to remind yourself not to say. You can always pull the earlobe, something like that. Just again to remind yourself not to do it, but you can breathe in, and that will give extra oxygen to your brain and allow you to think a little clearer, and again remind you not to say that you can just continue on with what you were about to say or in the middle of saying. Kind of related to that, and I alluded to that a little bit with the kind of tugging at your earlobe, is sometimes if you're really worried or you do need to take some time to gather your thoughts, strike a pose and just indicate you're thinking about something with your facial expression, and just doing something like tugging at your earlobe, or actually going like holding your chin like this. Oh yes, and that's fine. People expect you to think. An employer wants you to be thoughtful in your answers to your interview questions. So take the time to think, and if you need to give a visual clue, give a visual clue. That's okay. Smile. Just, you'd be surprised how much it can affect your body and your brain if you smile. You have to remember to smile sometimes when you're nervous. If you're like me, if you're like a lot of people I know, you might forget to smile if you're concentrating very hard, and you don't want to come across as being unhappy or unpleasant or grumpy or any of those negative things. So remind yourself to smile during the course of the interview. Some other good body language tips, of course, are to sit up straight or to even lean forward. That shows interest in the interviewer and what he or she's saying. You want to make good eye contact. Of course, try not to lean back, even if you feel super comfortable, because you don't want to give the impression that you're uncaring or that you're arrogant, which that can a lot of times do. Try not to fidget, doodle, things like that. All good tips, and can be hard if you're an introvert or are feeling really nervous during an interview. But smile, just to remind yourself that you really want to be here, you really want this job, you're really happy to be here interviewing for this job. You also want to keep your answers positive. Even if you're not feeling especially confident, you really need to come across as confident. And by keeping your answers positive, you will send that message. So even if you have something to say about an employment situation, let's say that's not entirely positive in your mind, say the most positive thing that you can. For example, if you were recently told that you're going to be laid off in 2 months, or you found that the company is being dissolved in 6 months or something, you certainly don't want to say those no good so-and-sos, I can't believe they're doing this to me after 12 years. You want to say something to the effect of, unexpectedly, I found that I may be downsized, or that the company might be making changes that I'm not sure really benefit me. So I'm looking to make a change now rather than wait for them to make a decision And my career plan is, and so this fits in with my career plan, so that the employer gets an idea of not only that you're a positive person and that you can be resilient and flexible, but that you actually have a plan and that you're organized and thoughtful, and you move yourself forward, you're self-motivated. So those are all good qualities that can come across just in maintaining that positive air and attitude, which is definitely something you want to communicate. Nobody wants to hire another grumpy grump in the office. There's always at least one. You don't want to be that one, and they probably wouldn't want you to be that one. Make sure to ask questions. By asking questions, again, it shows the employer that you're interested. Now, I had a client recently that said, well, she was going to ask questions, but then her friend who has done some hiring said that you should never ask questions. And I asked her, well, what kind of questions, was he alluding to? Well, it turns out that the person had asked about vacation time, if they could telecommute, stuff that you wouldn't want to bring up during the first interview. They may be things that you want to wait till you have a job offer, or at least the second interview, to ask about. So do be careful the types of questions you ask. More appropriate might be to ask the interviewer, what brought you to work here? What do you like best about working here? Can you tell me what a day in the life of a person doing this job would be like? Something that gives the employer the idea that you are actually interested in this job and that you want to learn more about it, and that you want to make sure that you can be an effective employee if you're offered a position with them. Let's see here. So, just back up a little bit to body language, just a little bit more about that. Just be careful not to cross at anything if possible. When you cross your arms like this, and you probably can't see me because it's just a headshot, or even cross your legs, sometimes it can be taken subconsciously as you're closed off or you're belligerent. So really try not to do that if you can, and certainly, again, try not to fidget too much, or make faces too is another big one. Sometimes when people are thinking, they make weird faces if they're on their own or with friends, and it's kind of almost a tic, I guess. So if you do something like that, practice real hard before the interview and in your everyday life not doing that, because this employer doesn't know you. They don't know that you always make that weird kind of face when you're thinking. So be careful of anything like that might be misinterpreted or misunderstood even. And again, just lean forward and make good eye contact with everyone in the room if you're interviewing with more than one person. So, what are you going to do after the interview? Hopefully you'll write a thank you note right away when you leave, and maybe when you're in your car even. Jot some notes down to yourself about the interview, what you want to include in your thank you letter, what you want to maybe look at for improving in the future if you're called back for an interview with this employer, or in your next interview, kind of analyze the interview in your mind and think, what felt good, what didn't quite work, what changes will you make next time. And I do have some clients that will on occasion ask at the end of an interview as one of their questions, how did I do? Can you give me some feedback? And I don't know how entirely comfortable I am with that personally. If you can carry it off, that's fine. I don't have anything really against it. But I think, if you're not offered a job, certainly, I might take the time to go back to that employer and say, gee, I thought I did real well during the interview, but I'd really like to improve in the future. Can you just take a quick minute and give me some feedback about my interview? Or is there another reason why I wasn't hired? Maybe I could, get that skill, or make sure that I've clearly addressed that on my resume a little better, so that the employers know I have that. So do ask for feedback. Try to make it timely and appropriate, of course, but don't be afraid to ask for feedback. You'd be surprised what you find out. And, usually people are very kind and will let you know good things. And, if they need to pass on something a little negative, they'll be gentle about it. Don't worry. I've never had a client that had a bad reaction to asking for feedback. So I think you could feel comfortable doing that, certainly. I think you'll be okay. So again, my name's Mary Sherwood Savinsky, and this was just some tips about interviewing for introverts. We are in the middle of a series of tips for interviewing in general, and we'll delve into detail on each of the tips during the remaining slide presentations that we'll be doing. We've done 6 interview tips so far, and let's see if I can run down what we've covered to date very quickly for you. We've talked about practicing in detail, taking notes, wearing appropriate and comfortable clothing, visiting location the day before, relaxing, trying to cram the night before the interview is not going to be helpful, so I'd advise you not to do that. And again, breathing is very important. Just take a deep breath if you're tempted to say or you feel like your head's going to explode because you have too many thoughts running around in there. It's important to take the time to think and to breathe during the interview. I myself, when I'm concentrating on something, it's I don't know how funny it is, but it's probably a little odd that I will hold my breath, and I don't realize that I'm holding my breath when I'm really concentrating on something, and until I breathe in, I'm like, oh, I forgot to breathe, which most people do not do, so I don't think you need to worry about that. But those are just some of the tips that we've talked about in detail, and there's some overlap with the introverts out there. But if you're an introvert, I hope this helped you. Just remember, you have got wonderful skills and abilities and qualities. You're going to have to work a little harder to make them shine to the employer, but you can do it. I have faith in you. Just smile and breathe, and remember, you're going to do a great job out there. So hopefully you will let me know if you get the job. I'd love to hear from you. You can email me anytime, lifeworks@mail.com. Feel free to visit my website, life-works.info, or my blog, which is jobsearchfortherestofus.com. You'll find a lot of free resources there and some links to some additional videos and articles. I write for several different sites online, so you can find some articles that may be of interest to you there as well. Until next time, I'm Mary Sherwood Savinsky. I'm an occupational consultant, and I'm happy to help you with any of your career-related concerns, whether it's resume writing, cover letter writing, biography, LinkedIn profile, or interview prep. I'd love to help you. Just reach out and let me know if you do need help. If you'd like to email me, it's lifeworks@mail.com. Take care, and I look forward to hearing that you got the job.